All right, well, good afternoon and welcome everyone. We're happy you've joined us for today's fiscal year 2022-2023 Violence Intervention and Prevention Grants Orientation webinar for new grantees. My name is Sam Cook and I serve as a Senior Project Manager within PCCD's Executive Director's Office. I'm happy to be with you today, and I'm also happy to be joined by a number of my colleagues from the agency who will be tag teaming today's presentation with me. I'm just going to ask them to say a quick hello and introduction at this time, and I'll start by asking my colleague Chris Epica to say hello and a little bit about himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Sam said, my name is Chris Epica. I'm Deputy Director in our Office of Financial Management and Administration. And I'm going to ask Zoe to go next.
Thanks, Chris. I'm Zoe Miner. I'm a program analyst in our Office of Research, Evaluation, and Strategic Policy Development. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Subsinski. I'm a project manager in the executive office at PCCD. I'm also joined by my colleague Heather Hewitt, if she wants to introduce herself.
Good afternoon. I'm Heather Hewitt, and I work as an executive assistant in the executive office.
Lori, do you want to go next?
I think we may be experiencing some technical difficulties. We'll go back to Wested's folks maybe a little bit later in the presentation. In the meantime, I just wanted to kind of do a quick preview of today's agenda. All right, so let's take a moment to walk through today's agenda. First, we'll go over just a couple of quick housekeeping rules. First, today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website as well as our YouTube channel as soon as it becomes available. We'll also post a copy of today's PowerPoint slides for reference, and we'll certainly email that out to you once everything's ready. We do encourage you to take a moment to check your audio settings to make sure you can hear today's presentation. Please note that we cannot hear you through this Teams live platform. However, you will be able to submit questions through the written Q&A feature in the Microsoft Teams live event platform. So questions submitted through the Q&A chat will not be immediately visible to all participants, but just rest assured that they've been received and will be reviewed by our team. Moving towards the rest of today's agenda, we're just going to provide a brief overview of PCCD as well as a recap of the fiscal year 2022 VIP Competitive Grants Program. We'll then spend the bulk of our presentation covering PCCD's review process and grants management expectations, including some frequently asked questions that we often receive during that process. Our friends at Wested will then provide some information about the VIP Technical Assistance Initiative that they're spearheading, and we'll also talk about a quick refresher on our Egrants system, including checking out your user roles and making sure everything's squared away on that platform. And then last but not least, we'll talk about some homework and next steps that we're asking VIP grantees to do over the next few weeks. We have reserved the remainder of today's session to answer any questions that are submitted by participants. On the off chance that we run out of time and there's any questions we can't get to today, we'll certainly try to tackle those offline with folks either individually or through a group message. So with all that said, let's go ahead and dive right in. So our goals for today's time together. First, to understand our process at PCCD for reviewing grants prior to making final awards. We hope that during the session, you'll be able to know a little bit more about what's expected from your organization and agency as part of our onboarding and grants management. We're also hoping to convey supports and resources that are available to you and your organization from PCCD, as well as our partners, including technical assistance and training that's provided by Wested. We also are hoping to emphasize the immediate next steps and homework items that are on the horizon for you, and then certainly provide an opportunity for you to ask any initial questions that you might have at this point. So with that, let's provide a quick overview of PCCD for folks who might be less familiar with us. Our agency, as this slide suggests, was established in 1978 through Pennsylvania state law, and we serve as the Commonwealth's Justice Planning and Policymaking Agency. Our mission is to enhance the quality, coordination, and planning within the criminal and juvenile justice systems, to facilitate the delivery of services to victims of crime, and to increase the safety of our communities. We're a relatively small but growing state agency that's housed within the executive office with approximately 100 employees and change. We facilitate 6 advisory committees, a school safety and security committee, and 2 training boards, as well as implement actions taken by the commission. Our responsibilities and programs fall into a number of different areas that align with our mission. That includes funding and grants, technical assistance, data and research, victims compensation and training, among other things. We would certainly welcome you to learn more about our agency and our programs, resources, and initiatives by visiting our website at pccd.pa.gov, and would encourage folks to take a look at our strategic framework as well as our annual reports for more information about what our agency does and what we're all about. Okay, so we've covered who we are. Let's talk a little bit about the fiscal year 2022 VIP grants program. So just a quick recap, $105 million was appropriated in state and federal funds for VIP grants to PCCD this year through the state budget. In early September, PCCD announced the availability of $100.5 million to support 2 competitive grant programs. The first was the 2022 VIP grants program, which you're all here because you were approved for. And then the second was a coordinated community violence intervention strategies pilot grant program. So the broad purpose of VIP funds is to support effective local intervening and preventive measures designed to stop gun and group-related violence occurring across the state. On January 11th, 2023, the School Safety and Security Committee, which is responsible for oversight of VIP funds, approved 122 VIP competitive grants projects totaling $88.5 million, as well as 5 coordinated community violence intervention pilot grant site projects totaling $12 million. If you're on this call, as I mentioned before, that means you're affiliated with one of the 122 competitive projects approved by the School Safety and Security Committee a few weeks back. So once again, glad to have you here and certainly looking forward to working with you over the next couple of weeks and months. So this slide provides a quick snapshot of where we've been and where we're heading in terms of our fiscal year 2022 VIP grants program. We have already covered the application, initial review, and recommendation process. We are now in the final review and approval stage of this timeline. So as you'll hear in a moment or two from my colleague Zoe, that stage involves program and fiscal staff review of Egrants applications, as well as today's orientation webinar. So we're also planning onboarding calls with program and fiscal staff that'll take place over the next couple of weeks, as well as an introduction to our VIP technical assistance partners and resources. The project period for awards will start on February 1st, that's today, and run through June 30th of 2025. As you can see on this slide, and as Zoe will cover in just a little bit, your first quarterly program report will be due April 20th, 2023. Chris will also cover later that your first fiscal report is due that same day. And again, we'll cover those in greater detail in just a little bit in our session. You might be thinking, February 1st, that's today, we don't have our award yet. Oh no, so no worries. A delayed start is completely normal and totally okay. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague Zoe Miner, who will provide a little bit more context to that reassurance and also give you guys a little bit more on our review process. So Zoe, you want to take it away?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam. So we thought it would be helpful to share information, some general information, and also detailed information about PCCD's review process, and hopefully alleviate any concerns of the delay and then what's next for your grant. So I'm sure one of the biggest questions on your mind is, when will we get our award? What is the timeline for us getting our award? And as it says on this slide, it really depends. But there are a few steps that must occur before you officially receive your award notice and your application changes to open awarded status. So currently, both program and fiscal staff have started the process of reviewing your applications. If staff have questions, they will enter them in eGrants and release them for you to respond to and address. This might include making changes to certain sections, including the budget. You will receive alerts in eGrants to notify you of these. And as stated on this slide, the sooner you can address these questions, the sooner you can continue moving through the rest of the review process. And generally speaking, you can see the steps of the review process on the slide on the right. And then also please know and please be assured that if at any time you have questions on this process, you can always reach out to your assigned program and fiscal contacts that are listed in eGrants. So I know what I just described was pretty general. So we're going to walk through the steps in a little bit more detail, as the funding process is a bit of a journey, and it not only involves review from staff here at PCCD, but it also includes other agencies and parts of the Commonwealth. So I am going to go over these one step at a time. Number one, the formal application is submitted to PCCD via eGrants. You guys already accomplished that. As mentioned before, both PCCD program and fiscal staff will review the grant application for completeness and will notify you if any revisions need to be made. As I also said previously, an email is generated from eGrants to alert you if there are any issues to resolve. And then after program and fiscal staff provide their approval, the application is sent to PCCD Legal for their review. And then after legal staff approval, PCCD will create the contract with the Office of the Budget. Then the grant is changed to awarded status in eGrants. Your organization will receive an official award letter via email, and it will also be available in eGrants that will need to be signed, scanned, and emailed back to PCCD to complete that process. And then once the grant is awarded and signed, reimbursements can be submitted by the agency using the fiscal reports on the monitoring tab in eGrants to request reimbursements for actual expenses. So I did want to highlight, it is emphasized on this slide that your organization will receive reimbursement via these fiscal reports in the monitoring tab in eGrants. And please be assured that there is a walkthrough guide to assist you on how to submit these reports. And then also always a friendly reminder that you must keep supporting documentation for all reporting expenditures, but they are not required for fiscal report submission. So now that we've covered the review process and idea of how to submit for payment, you might be wondering what are some common review issues that you might receive questions on related to your grant application. So common review issues are included on the slide, and I'll go over a couple with an example. So for budget calculations and justifications, staff may have questions on whether an expense is integral to the project, or maybe it's missing justification. All line items need to be justified in that justification box, as you all might recall in that budget detailed section. And then for items related to missing documents and assurances, maybe you listed a project partner in your application that is integral to project success, but there was no letter of support provided. So you might get asked to provide a letter of support or a letter of commitment as required in the funding announcement. And just a helpful reminder for everybody, because we know receiving alerts in eGrants can be alarming if you're unfamiliar with our system. You will receive notices daily. This isn't signaling that your funding is at risk, only that there are still open issues that need resolved. So for example, maybe you were given a due date of responding to an issue and the due date passed. Again, another plug here for this. If you don't understand an alert, feel free to reach out to your program or fiscal contact. We are here to support you. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Chris to give us an overview of some procurement details and other items that will be important for your grant award.
Thanks, Zoe, and good afternoon again, everyone. Sam, if you go to the next slide, please. So every grantee that was awarded a grant will need a Commonwealth Pennsylvania vendor number, and we'll need to set up bank account details within your agency's vendor account. PCCD can only make electronic ACH payments to the bank account identified in your agency's vendor account. So if your agency has been awarded a grant from PCCD previously, you already have a vendor number. If you're unsure, if your agency has a vendor number, you can go to the vendor registration website highlighted there on the slide and enter your federal identification number, employer identification number, and the site will tell you if you have a valid vendor number. If you're unsure, please feel free to reach out to the physical contact that is identified within Egrants in your project. One other document that we do need with your application is the completed signature page. Now, this document should have been uploaded in Egrants and submitted with your application. If you haven't submitted your signature page yet, you may still do so at any time by uploading it to the main summary section of your application. Now, you'll notice on the screen there, 2 highlighted areas. The highlighted area on the right is where the authorized signatory should sign, and the authorized signatory is any agency official with documented signature authority to sign contracts for your organization. In the case of nonprofit organizations, many times this is the president or chair of the board of directors. The highlighted area on the left is where the attesting officer should sign, and the attesting officer is basically another agency official that is verifying the authenticity of the signature of that authorized signatory that's signed on the right side of that page. And again, for nonprofit organizations, many times this is the treasurer or secretary of the board of directors. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Zoe.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So we can jump to the next slide. I think we have plenty of time for these. We wanted to provide a few common questions that we received before we dive into the Q&A portion, which will take place later in this presentation. I am going to read them even though it's redundant, really because I want to emphasize the importance of these. I think the 4 questions that we're emphasizing here will provide really helpful information for you all. So you all might be wondering, when can I start purchasing items? So your project start date is today. However, it is recommended that you do not make any grant-related expenditures until you have received the signed award notice and returned the countersigned award notice to PCCD by uploading it within Egrants. A guide to assist with uploading this document is available on our website. And then second, is every budgeted expense I submitted in my Egrants application approved? So budgeted expenses are not approved until your grant is officially awarded and you receive the official award notice. During the initial review process, which I mentioned before has started, both program and fiscal staff are reviewing. There will be back and forth between your organization and those staff listed on your grant. And then as staff complete a more thorough review, they might have questions and request edits. So there might be a budget item that is unallowable that they might ask you to remove from your original submission. And then these last 2 that we wanted to emphasize, we hope really assures some smaller organizations. So although we mentioned before that PCCD generally does reimbursement only, we realize that larger purchases may create a cash flow issue for those smaller organizations. So generally, submitting fiscal reports to request reimbursement more frequently greatly assists in alleviating this issue. But should you have any questions and might need payment up front, we recommend that you email your fiscal staff person or the resource account that you see on your screen. And then, as I mentioned before, I know as part of your grant application, a lot of you provided some project partners that might be integral to your project. And some of those might be thought of as vendors. So the part that Chris went over for those organizations that need to be registered with the Commonwealth, it really only applies to the applicant agency and the recipient agency, because those payments will go to the grantees, and then your agency is responsible for then paying like any vendors or consultants that might be listed in your budget. And I'm going to turn it back over to Chris for him to walk through the fiscal report.
Thanks again, Zoe. As was mentioned earlier in this presentation, your first fiscal report will be due April 20th for the time period from the beginning of the grant, February 1st through March 31st. And even if you have no expenditures report, or if you haven't actually started activity, a report still would be due by the 20th of April. So fiscal reports are due 20 days after the end of every calendar quarter thereafter. And I think, as Zoe mentioned, you may submit interim reports more often if cash flow is a concern for your organization. On the fiscal report, you will be reporting actual expenditures. So when you create the fiscal report, you will see all of the line items that are in your approved grant budget, and your actual expenditures for the reporting period must be reported against those appropriate budget line items. After submission and PCC approval of that report, a payment will be initiated to reimburse your agency for the reported expenditures. And please note, you must keep all supporting documentation on file, such as time and effort reports, receipts, and invoices, to name a few. This documentation will be requested when your fiscal report is monitored for accuracy. And as noted on the bottom right side of this slide, there is a guide available to help you walk through submitting a fiscal report to us. And I'll pass back to Zoe for the program report.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. So I like a point that Chris emphasized, that even if like no activity has taken place, you will still be required to submit a program report. So similar to fiscal reports, program reports are also due quarterly, and you will receive notices and e-grants. There is a program report guide that is linked on this slide that provides a high-level overview of what's required, and it has like detailed screenshots of e-grants to help guide you through the submission process. But once you find yourself in the report, at the top of the report, it is going to provide the option of making it final. You're only going to choose final once the grant is expended, if before the end date, or if your last program report of the grant period. So you're not going to really touch that final button until closer to the end of the grant or project period. In this program report, you'll also get asked if the project is on schedule, if not why, and to briefly list activities that have occurred over the project period. So we know that the start date is technically today, but until certain project activities are at risk of not getting completed, we recommend you still answer yes, my project is on time. We don't want you to answer no due to this delay. You'll also be able to provide attachments and report on performance measures in this report. I like to emphasize the importance of completing this program report because it's a really good opportunity to brag about what your organization accomplished during the reporting period and the impact of your program in your communities.
Thanks, Zoe and Chris. Yeah.
Thanks, Sam.
I would just add one thing to the program report. Zoe mentioned performance indicators. So there will be some assigned performance indicators for your grant. There's ones that we ask every single VIP grantee to report out on. Those, I believe, were included in the original funding announcement and referenced there. We also assign program-specific indicators and group them by similar types of activities. So you'll learn more about that during your onboarding calls, and program staff are happy to walk you through that in a little bit further detail if you have any questions about any of those data collection pieces. So without further ado, happy to pass over the mic to our colleagues at WestEd for them to share a little bit about their work getting the VIP Technical Assistance Project up and running. So Lori and Sean, you want to take it away?
Sure, thanks, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. Thrilled to be here and looking forward to working with all of you. I'm Lori Toscano, the Director of Justice Technical Assistance at WestEd and the lead on this TTA project. So just to give you a little bit of background on both WestEd and our partner LISC, WestEd Justice and Prevention Research Center conducts research and evaluation and provides training and technical assistance, or TTA, in the areas of juvenile and criminal justice, violence prevention and intervention, school safety, and public health. We have experience in providing high-quality TTA to state and local education, mental health, and justice agencies, as well as community-based organizations and youth-serving partners. So we've done a lot of work on TTA projects around community-led and government-led efforts to prevent and reduce violence pretty much throughout the world. Our partner LISC, which stands for Local Initiative Support Corporation, is the nation's largest community development financial institution, and they have a 4-decade track record of delivering social and financial impact through technical assistance and financing across the country. They have a specific safety and justice program that has worked in over 100 communities in the past 10 years, supporting comprehensive community partnerships around crime prevention and efforts to reduce community violence. So just a little background on us. Sam, you can move to the next slide. So what we've been building out is this statewide community of practice in Pennsylvania. So all of the initial VIP grantees have been a part of that process. What we're building out right now is having an online community of practice and a learning portal where you'll be able to access resources. We'll have news about violence prevention and intervention initiatives and grants and all the other kind of things that are out there in the world, what's going on, so that you are informed. We're going to have a ton of events, webinars, opportunities to network. There'll be even a nice button where you can just click on it and request TA. In addition, as you can see from the slide, we're going to have bi-monthly webinars based on the interests and needs of you, the grantees. So everything will be led by your needs, your wants, and you will be the ones that are moving this forward in terms of what you'd like to know more about. We'll also have Ask an Expert opportunities where we'll have subject matter experts available. We'll have office hours where you can just pop in and ask a question, whether that's something about PCCD's lovely Egrants or another topic related to the implementation of your project. You'll also have the opportunity to be a part of the intensive training and technical assistance cohort. If you so choose to join, which we hope you will, you'll have a dedicated TTA staff member. You'll have a customized TTA action plan that will provide you with one-on-one access to subject matter experts, specific trainings, hours with other folks that are in the field, as well as cross-site visits, so you can learn more from either grantees in Pennsylvania or throughout the country. So we'll hope you'll take advantage of that and more information to come. Sam, if you could flip to the next slide, please. Our biggest thing, and I mentioned it briefly, we really want the training and technical assistance to be driven by you. So if you would please keep an eye out for the TTA survey. PCCD will be sending that out to you within the next week or so. I swear it takes under 10 minutes to complete. So as soon as that gets to you, if you could fill that out, we would greatly appreciate it. And we're really excited to be moving this project forward with all of you. And congratulations on your award. Back to you, Sam.
Thanks so much, Lori. And the best part of all of this, other than how fabulous and comprehensive those TTA resources are that Lori mentioned, is that all of this is available at absolutely no cost to any of you. So thanks to our investments in that program, everything is cost-free for grantees. So I just wanted to make sure that folks knew that that was free. So we are now at the fun and exciting moment of homework and next steps. So I wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of kind of the onboarding process that we're imagining for grantees in the next couple of weeks. So as you can see on this slide, all VIP grantees are going to be asked to participate in initial calls and meetings with our fiscal and program staff as part of the onboarding process. If you are a new grantee who has not previously received funding from our agency, we will be asking you to schedule one-on-one meetings with your assigned staff as well as folks from WestEd. Anybody else, if you've already gotten a grant from us in the past, you'll be asked to participate in group onboarding calls that are going to be organized by geographic region and community. We thought this would be a helpful way, you know, as Lori mentioned, there's certainly a lot of opportunities through our technical assistance initiative to connect with your peers who are doing similar work across the Commonwealth, but we thought it would be helpful to organize geographically so you could know who else in your community is doing work as part of VIP grants. And so I just want to keep reiterating that you should certainly remember that individualized technical assistance and support is available at any time if you need it. So again, these onboarding calls are really structured as a way to kind of get to know your individual program and fiscal staff, get to know the team at WestEd, but it's certainly not the only time that you'll be able to get in touch with us and ask any questions. And we hope this is just the start of a very wonderful working relationship between our organizations and agency. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to my lovely colleague, Heather Hewitt, who is going to walk us through a refresher on the eGrant system and some user roles that we think would be helpful as you all get started with some of the funding review process steps that Zoe covered earlier. So Heather, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sam. Good afternoon, everyone. There are 6 user roles that each agency has, each user has, and they're on the screen here: financial creator, financial reader, program creator, program reader, submission, and user manager. Agencies can have multiple users with the same, so you could have multiple financial creators, et cetera, et cetera. We do ask that, and I think we'll get to this on another slide, but we do ask that every agency has a user manager. And that person is able to do just that, manage roles for the agency. Let me see here. The next slide, please. Like I said, every agency should have an agency user manager security role. So this person approves requests and maintains existing security for users that are established under the agency and eGrants. If an agency does not have an active user manager, we do ask that you complete the registration request form, which is linked on this slide. And there is a box for an agency user manager that you'd want to check. And then that form can be sent back to the eGrants help desk, which is on the screen here. And we've also included a link to the user manager help guide, which will walk you through how to actually manage your users. Next slide. Okay, we do ask that you review and update contacts in eGrants. So when you're logged into eGrants, you would click to access an existing project. And from there, you would click on your appropriate grant ID, and you'll navigate from the project summary screen into your application. And then there is a main summary screen information. This is going to show you the 3 contacts that are associated with your grant: your project director, financial officer, and primary contact. Please note that the project director and the financial officer cannot be the same person, but either one of those people can also be the primary contact. So you will need to have a second user registered in eGrants and associated with your agency in order to populate these fields correctly. Next slide. Also review your security roles if you're already active in eGrants, if you might have had a grant from last year, for example. Sometimes, if you notice on the slide here, it does say all for the grant ID. Sometimes users will only have access to specific grants. So when you create a new one, it doesn't automatically give you access to that new one. All grants or access to all grants would give you access to any grant moving forward with your agency. And in order to see your personal access, once you're logged into eGrants, there's a user management tab at the top. When you click on this, it will come up just like it is on the screen that shows the current agency project roles access. If you do need to join a new agency, this is also where you would do that. And there's a link to, if you need to join a new agency, there's a link to the role request walkthrough, which is on the screen. And then, as I said, the user manager would see this request and they're able to approve that access. Next slide. User managers have the ability to maintain existing security for users that are already established within an agency or organization. Again, every agency should have a user manager. If they don't have one that's current, if it's someone that's left the agency, we do want to get somebody new in there that is current and that's able to manage existing and incoming users. The user manager guide is linked on this slide, and that is a helpful tool that'll walk you through all the different things that a user manager is able to do. Sorry, Sam, I thought that was back to you. To ensure.
No, you're right. You're good.
Oh, okay.
Thanks so much, Heather. Sorry,
Yep,
I didn't
thank you.
quick enough there. All right, so in terms of some next steps, so with all that information that Heather just provided you, we really want to make sure that communications and eGrants notifications are going to the right people in your organization. So to make sure that happens, definitely take a look, review the individuals who are currently assigned as the primary contact, project director, and financial officer to your grant application. If you need to make any changes to contacts or user roles in eGrants, you can certainly certainly do so. And if you need any help with that, the Egrants Help Desk is certainly a good resource to check out. You can also ping your program or fiscal staff to get some advice on that as well. In addition to eGrants, which does a lot of wonderful things and sends a lot of notifications out, folks who are assigned in that will probably start to get a little sick of the daily morning reminders that come from the system. We recognize that there may be other folks from your team who are maybe not going to be inherent to some of the grants administration functions that eGrants requires, but who may have an important role to play in the project's overall success. And so to make sure that we have the right contact information, I know several folks already reached out as part of this webinar and leading up to it, asking to update a contact list. We're going to ask folks to also utilize a VIP contact information survey form just to ensure that we are emailing and contacting the right folks at your organization as your VIP grant gets up and running. So that'll make sure that if we have any project-specific questions for you and your organization specifically, we know who to go to. And then it also ensures that when we send out program-wide updates, that those are going to the right folks and you don't have to hopefully forward as much to your colleagues. So you can see that the link to that SurveyMonkey form is in the slide. We will also be sending that out with our follow-up action items. And then a reminder, in addition to ensuring that the communications all looks good. We do want you to keep an eye out for that VIP Technical Assistance Needs Assessment Survey that Lori mentioned a couple minutes ago. So again, more to come on that, but really appreciate your responsiveness to both of those requests because it'll help us do a better job of staying in touch with you and making sure that we are providing you with the right information and things that are helpful to you moving forward. So that's the immediate next steps. A little bit further down the road, we wanted to take a minute or two just to preview a couple of related initiatives that will be on the horizon. So you may have noticed in the funny announcement, there's a reference to research and evaluation. We are really excited to be able to launch a new VIP grants evaluation initiative that's expected to get up and running in July of this year. So we have a $3 million open solicitation looking for a qualified entity to provide some robust evaluation services on implementation for a subset of VIP grants that we've supported. And as part of that, we know data collection can often be a challenge, especially for smaller organizations. And so really excited to not only have a dedicated research and evaluation partner for this initiative, but also to pair them up with our technical assistance partners at WestEd to really help make sure that any evaluation activities that we do in partnership with that selected entity will not create a burden on our grantees, but will in fact hopefully be a good capacity building experience as well. We also want to reiterate some of the training and technical assistance resources that WestEd and LIST will be developing over the next year or so for VIP grantees. So Lori mentioned a lot of them. We're really excited to have that initiative get up and rolling. So again, definitely encourage you to check that out and to continue to keep an eye out in your email for more updates on that initiative. And then finally, I mentioned at the start of our session that in addition to our VIP competitive grants program this year, we also recommended some awards for our coordinated community violence intervention pilot site. So this is a new initiative. And I think one of the things that we're really hoping to do in partnership with WestEd is to facilitate connections between VIP grantees, so you all, and the CCVI pilot sites as projects get underway. So these are 5 different pilot sites in 4 different locations across the Commonwealth. So for some of you, not quite as relevant, but for others, if you're working in and around the communities where these pilot sites are going to take place, we're really making sure, or hoping to make sure rather, that you are aware of those projects, that they're aware of you, and that we can help facilitate some of those connections within those communities. So a couple of reminders as we head to the home stretch and start to enter the question portion of today's session. So you've heard it reiterated a couple times today, but just another friendly reminder that awards are not final. until you receive a formal award notice from PCCD. The standard disclaimer that PCCD is not liable for any costs that are incurred prior to the official start date of the award, which is February 1st of this year. And then again, a friendly reminder that organizations can only request reimbursement for expenditures that have been approved in their budget. So if you need to make changes or if you have to make an adjustment at any point down the line, please do that proactively. It's really difficult for us to approve changes that happened already. So just always keep that in mind. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your fiscal or program staff for more information. And with that, we would like to officially open it up for questions from participants. I know I've been seeing a couple of them come flying through as we've been going through our presentation. So if you haven't already typed up a question, feel free to use the Q&A feature to submit that now. PCCD staff have been monitoring questions that have been coming in, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can over the next several minutes. Again, if there are any questions that we're not able to fully address today, PCCD staff will certainly be able to follow up via email or other forms of communication. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Alyssa Sibsinski, who has had a hawk eye on the Q&A chat and will be facilitating our dialogue from here. So Alyssa, go ahead and do your thing.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate it. So we do have some good questions. So we have some for program and fiscal and overall questions. So I'll start with some program questions for Zoe. One of the grantees is asking if they don't plan to use their funds until later in the year, will they still be required to submit their quarterly program or fiscal report in April? Will they still get a notification even if they are either awarded after that date or if they don't start the grant until after?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Let's just say you don't reach open awarded status until after April, and then you hit open awarded status. Egrants is going to send you an alert that you are delinquent on your reports. But please know that both your program and fiscal staff know that is just a system notification that is automatically generated. We know that you are not delinquent on your reports. It was caused by the delay in you receiving your open awarded status. And then related to the question around, what if project activity really isn't taking place until July? Am I still required to submit fiscal reports and program reports? And the answer is yes. They are going to be required quarterly. But for the fiscal report, as an example, you would just submit 0 expenses. And then in the project report, you would write simply that project activities are not scheduled to take place until July 2023. I hope that answers that question.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then we have a question for Chris. If we were to change the budget from what we originally submitted, should we reach out to PCCD now or wait until everybody has reviewed the current application and sends back issues?
No, I would suggest that you contact the program and fiscal staff assigned to your grant now, so that we are able to talk through what those changes are and if those changes would in fact be acceptable. And if they are acceptable, then in that case, we can return the application to you and have you make those adjustments.
Perfect. And for them to contact their program or fiscal staff, where would they find that contact?
That is within Egrants, within your project. There, you'll see the name of the program contact and the fiscal contact, and it'll have their, if you click on the link, it'll have their contact information like phone number and email address.
Perfect. And then I have another question for Chris. When we were talking about some of the documentation for reimbursements, will there be an invoice template created for people to utilize, or will they create their own?
No, you will not create your own. Fiscal reports and program reports, for that matter, are submitted within Egrants. Within the monitoring tab, you'll hit a create fiscal report button, and that will basically populate all the budget categories where you had line items within your budget, and you will report against those line items and submit directly within Egrants. You don't create your own template or form. Everything's contained within our Egrants system.
Okay, perfect. And then I do have another question for you as well. We have plenty of budget questions. So Are they able to bill for expenses paid prior to the award date, the 2/1/2023, for things that have yet to take place? So things like reserving a space based on this grant or a speaker, but they paid it before the beginning of the grant.
Now, expenditures must take place within the grant period.
Perfect. Okay. And then I think we can move on to a few other questions that are not budget related. I would say this one probably go to Sam. If you have a contractor under this grant that is ready to officially sign a contract for the services, does it make sense to wait to sign it, or would it make sense to sign it now?
Oh, I think that's a Chris question, but Chris, I'll take a stab at it. I think generally speaking, we'd encourage you to kind of wait until things are awarded and you're confident that that's an approved expenditure. Certainly if you want to take steps to prepare things administratively, and you're not incurring expenses, that's up to you. But just know that until all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed, technically, it's not an approved expense. So, Chris, did I butcher any of that?
No, that was perfect.
Sweet, I'm learning. And can I actually toggle back to the question about the invoice template? Because I think, Chris, you're totally right that, we're not expecting folks to come up with their own fiscal reports, but I read the question to maybe be more around, in terms of an organization who is invoicing others for services, if that's something that we can provide a template for, or if they should just use their own invoices to facilitate some of those expenditures.
Well, actually, within our PCCD's applicants manual, which is available on our website, there are certain data elements that are required on, like, for example, a supplier's invoice or a contractor's invoice, where that contractor supplier is invoicing one of our grantees. So certain things like period of performance, certainly the amount, the type of service provided. As I mentioned, there are certain data elements, and all those data elements are available within our applicants manual for those items that must be included on an invoice.
Okay, perfect. And safe to say that if folks had any questions about what should or shouldn't be included on an invoice, they could reach out to their fiscal staff.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, Alyssa, back to you. Sorry.
No, it's totally okay. This question is for Zoe and Chris, really. So I just want to confirm fiscal reports can be interim or quarterly, but program reports can only be per quarter, correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can submit fiscal reports like more frequently. I feel like sorry, Chris, if I'm taking the spotlight away from you, but some organizations choose to submit fiscal reports monthly, but program reports are only required quarterly. And even though in the system at Egrants, so it'll still probably say something like quarterly fiscal report, once you're actually in the system and able to submit a report, you'll be able to like retitle it, if you will, to interim, so you can submit it more frequently.
Perfect. Chris, do you have anything else to add?
No, just I would just say, fiscal reports you may submit really as often as you want. A lot of smaller nonprofit organizations will submit fiscal reports monthly, so they'll do an interim report for the 2 months in between each calendar quarter to help with cash flow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We have a few more questions. I'm just trying to read through them very quickly. So this question would be for Chris and getting a signed award letter. So the bylaws of our organization clearly show that the board of directors have granted authority to the CEO to sign all contracts on behalf of the agency. Is it still necessary that the board president sign when the CEO has been given the authority?
No, it's not. The person signing just has to have documented signature authority, and that documented signature authority would include that specification in the bylaws that the CEO can sign.
Okay, perfect. And this question is actually for WestEd. So some people are having some issues copying it from the slide on the screen. So will they receive a survey link via email?
Yes, that's correct. Survey link via email, so you don't even have to worry about trying to click the screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Somebody else has another question. This is probably for Sam. Are they able to release a press release about their project beginning?
Yeah, so there's a press release that the governor's office issued when these grants were approved by the School Safety and Security Committee. Our advice to folks is to always just be kind of cautious around, again, until your grant is officially approved and awarded. Some little details of that might change, and so up to you kind of how you want to communicate that. But it is publicly available information that your organizations were approved for VIP funding. So you're not breaking some type of a secret thing that we have going on here. So yeah, no worries there.
Perfect. And I have another question for you, Sam. For the performance indicators, would you be able to tell people where they could find the ones that are listed on their grant and how they will get new performance indicators that are more specific to their project?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our VIP funding announcement, we did have a section that talked about performance indicators that would be assigned to all grants. They're pretty straightforward, I would say. So a lot of them have to do with kind of number of folks that are served each quarter in aggregate, and also new individuals. And there's some other questions about trainings and other events that you do in partnership with folks in your community. So you can see those indicators in the funding announcement. As I mentioned before, as part of our onboarding process, we are planning to focus pretty heavily on the performance indicators, both the universal set that everybody's going to be responsible for, as well as some project-specific indicators that we're thinking will add to your project. So you'll be able to preview those. If you have any questions about them or any concerns about it, that's definitely something that we can tackle during the onboarding process. The way that we add those in is a little bit wonky. So we're going to be basically doing project modifications to add in your performance indicators. So we'll kind of walk you through what that process looks like on your end. But that's probably about as much information as is helpful at this stage now. Alyssa, you're a guru on that at this point. So if there's anything else you want to add to that, feel free.
Yeah, no, I agree. We usually send them out as well so you can review them. So if there's any that don't work for you or you need to discuss them further, your program staff will be happy, or myself would be happy to talk through any of those performance indicators with you. We do have one or two more questions. This is a little bit about reimbursement and program quarterly reports. So this question could go to Chris. The quarterly reports, do they initiate reimbursement, or is that a separate process?
So payments will be made by reimbursement based on what is reported on the fiscal reports that are submitted. So if you submit just quarterly reports, we will pay based on what is submitted on that quarterly report. As I mentioned before, there's an opportunity to submit interim fiscal reports. We would also pay based on those interim reports. I would say we would not, if you are delinquent in reporting on the program side, we would not be able to make a payment until you caught up with your quarterly program reports. So it is the fiscal report that initiates the payment process.
Okay, perfect. And then this question is actually for Heather. If we want to see alerts, where in eGrants would we get them?
So your alerts would be under, you have to get a second here. They should be under your work manager. When you click on that tab, it comes up as tasks and alerts. And you can search if you kind of have an idea of what you're looking for, but they should also populate under the blue bar that shows up. So that is where you would go for those.
Perfect, thank you. And then one last question. This is for Sam or for Chris. If the program activity does not start until after the official date, and I know that we're not there yet, but is there a possibility for either an extension or for them to change the budget to use some of the funds that they weren't able to use in the beginning while they were waiting to be awarded?
Yeah, so definitely I would say it's a little soon for that, but Chris, I'll let you maybe take a crack at that if you want to jump in.
Thanks, Sam. I would agree. I think it's a little soon to talk about possible extensions. But as far as when you begin implementation of your project, if you find that you do need to make changes to what was originally submitted in the budget, where you don't have a line item, or you need to make a change to the name of a contractor or employee, there is an opportunity to do that through a project modification request, and that there is a guide on that, as well as there's guide on a lot of functions within Egrants on our website that'll walk you through how to submit a project modification request. And that's also something, if you're not sure if a project modification request is required, you can always contact the staff that are assigned to your grant within Egrants.
All right, perfect. Well, with 5 minutes left, I think those are all the questions that we can answer at this time. Again, you can reach out to your program or fiscal staff, and I have been in touch with many of you to schedule some onboarding calls, so I'm happy to talk through any of those other questions, but I'll turn it back over to Sam.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. I think we'll also try to make sure in the recap email, we'll send out the recording, so you'll be able to rewatch this if you're so inclined. That'll also include a link out to the slides, so you can peruse those and click on links. But just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. We know that there's lots on people's plates. Everyone's super busy and doing important stuff. So just want to reiterate a couple additional resources. You've heard it a million times, but we'll say it 1,000,001 times. If you have questions, you need help, you're confused, you want to talk anything through, contact your assigned fiscal or program staff. We talked to you about where you can locate that in eGrants. If you have any other questions, feel free to email our executive office team at that email address right there. Did want to note for you a couple of save the dates. So it's a little TBD, but stay tuned for more information. VIP Technical Assistance Project webinar, an official kickoff, if you will, from WestEd and LISC will be coming up soon. And then if you are of the fiscal inclination, we wanted to make sure to highlight that on February 28th from 11 to 12 Eastern Time, we'll be hosting a post-award training for new grantees that is going to be organized and facilitated by Chris's colleagues in the Office of Financial Management and Administration. So really helpful primer for folks, or even a refresher if it's been a little while since you've managed one of our grants. So definitely encourage you to save the date for that, and more information will be provided in the next couple of weeks. So all that being said, thanks so much for all that you do. Congratulations. We're looking forward to working with you. And I hope you all have a good rest of your afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.